You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Convos podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation. The place where stars and minds align.
Peace, you're now tuned into the Cosmic Convos podcast. I'm your humble host, Herut, and we got our good brother here, Brother Ra. How you doing?
Brother, doing quite well, man. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good, man. Just taking it a day at a time, putting everything together and stuff like that. Trying to get like you out here in these streets, man.
Oh man, if I was you, I wouldn't need my hand, bro.
What's that quote? If I had your hand, I cut mine off.
Yeah, I had yours, I throw my hand. For real, man.
Indeed, man. But before we get too far, man, I want to remind you all that this episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Caliprucia Astrology and our good people over there on Patreon. Shout out to the patrons, man. You guys actually make some excellent contributions and, really, are great, support for the show. So I definitely want to send a special shout out to you all. You can find Push It Forward Media Group on Instagram at Push It Forward. That's PUSHITFWD. And you can also find us on the web at the same handle, pushitforward.com. Also, I want to, let you guys know about Ninth Lord. You can find us on Instagram at 9THLORD Films, FILMS Films on Instagram. And then you can also find us on the web at ninethlord.com. You can catch us there. We got, short films and, things of that nature and stuff like that for you to check out. And also, like I said, don't forget, follow us on Cosmic Convos. Right, Cosmic Convo on Instagram, COSMICCONVO on Instagram. Follow us there. That's where you get a lot of news, a lot of different, posts and different things like that. And then also on that Instagram, that's how you can find us on Patreon as well. Brother Ra, how can the people get a hold of you in Caliprucia?
Pretty much three primary ways. First way is hit me up through Caliprucia Astrology at Gmail. That's my main email. That's where all my things are funneled through. So if you're trying to get at me for a reading, consultation, classes, get at me there. If that doesn't work for you, then you can also hit me up on IG or Facebook via Shechem Ra. Same tag on both of those. So either one of those will definitely get at me.
Indeed. So yeah, man, here we are at episode 23 and whatnot, man. Episode 22 was did significantly well, man. I think, so much stuff going on, man. Whenever we're able to kind of tap into, where everyone is at and stuff like that, man. Those episodes does pretty well, man. And whatnot. How you feel about episode 22? What's the type of feedback you've been getting?
A lot of good feedback. A lot of people really resonate with the message. Even my own mama, right? Considering for her to say it, right? It's a notion.
Yeah.
But she, everyone that I've been mentioning so far is right on board. They feel it. They've been seeing it, and to have it articulated was really nice for them to be able to just kind of, yeah, that's exactly what we see. It's not hard to witness once you match the destiny to the individual, then you can see where everything pretty much comes in.
Absolutely. And I, one thing I did when I was, looking at the episode and I thought about it, I was wondering, like, that Kamala Harris definitely has that that martial disposition pretty heavy. But it did make me wonder, is like, is there a potential for, Kamala Harris to possibly, use her powers for good, right? She could still be that top cop, but could she be on the right side or the wrong side is what I was wondering. You know, so that, I mean, as far as question, that's a question I got for you, brother. What do you think? You think that she could there's a potential, maybe even a slither that she could be pushed to utilize that disposition in a way that is beneficial, to the people, or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, first we're dealing with Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Let's get straight up.
Yeah.
Right? It's a Gemini. They're Gemini. Gemini ascendants have the knack to switch per the need.
Yeah.
Right? They don't stay the course.
Yeah.
They're not stand-up type people. Right?
Yeah.
They will,
They
acquiesce.
They can be twisted.
And she's Megashira. Searching constantly. Searching. I've dated some women like similar to this. And I'm telling you, man, not to say she can't, because let's just keep it a buck, right? The forces of the universe are always tugging with one another, right?
Yeah.
Positive and negative are always kind of seeking balance, and so her being that typical Gemini disposition, which can be pulled, right, can be swayed, can be manipulated, can manipulate, let me say this. I see Jupiter in the 12th house. Most of the time when I see Jupiter in the 12th house, it takes the person a lifetime to expel certain karmic tendencies before they can really acquiesce to a higher spiritual plane. I'm talking about 60-ish, right?
Yeah.
When Jupiter has made about 5 returns, right? At that point, Jupiter in the 12th house a lot of times can kick in and have a higher spiritual purview or program in life. But the thing is that it's in Taurus. I just honestly, I think she's a puppet on a string. You know what I mean? I think she's a good puppet. Puppets can be used for any kind of show, whether it be one that seems to be beneficial or one that can be downright antithetical to our causes. But she's got those 3 martial dispositions: ascendant, degree, moon, and then Mars being in debilitation. It just, I mean, I just don't see her. And here's the thing, right? My mom always said, look who someone's laying with, and you'll see a lot about the person. And I'm sorry, Hey, to each his own. I'm not here to judge. All I'm saying is, when you look at my bedroom, right?
Yeah.
There's no playing, right? So, I mean, I can befriend and we can work together and do all of that. But when it comes to the temple, no, ain't no thieves in the temple, right? So, we don't do that. So when I see that, it just kind of leaves me it's a little grainy when I think about her being positive or effective towards what we call good, right?
Yeah.
I just don't see it. She's a politician and she's a lawyer. 2 things, both are, yeah. But 2 things that look for loopholes naturally, right? They naturally look for loopholes. They naturally look for, it's a Sebek, right? Anpu, Eshu, the trickster. That's how I see her, right? With a little fire on it, right? That's how I see Kamala. Yeah, she's a trickster god, right? She's a goddess, right? She's not to be trusted.
Indeed, yeah, man. I mean, especially in the era that she came up in, and right now it's you can already see that it's like, yeah, man.
She was on the Breakfast Club, and it was like, who's this person? Who are you? You were just somebody else two days ago. Now she's in office. She's even more different. Have you noticed? Like, she's like this whole new.
I mean, that man. What I picked up on, and I've always been like, it's always been a cringy thing to me when I see, these memes out there like, oh, Geminis are crazy and stuff like that or whatever. But I will say something along, what I have noticed between, either somebody Gemini Sun and Gemini Moon is just an very unique ability to conform and adapt to whatever, environment that they're in. Right. It's interesting. Even your, what's his name? Oh, snaps. Yeah. So, yeah, even Akon, right? Because his moon is in Gemini. I saw. It's just different. It's a different kind of value set that they have. It's like a different. You can get into a situation for good or bad, and just adapt. And be unrecognizable.
They're the most adaptable.
Yeah.
Gemini is the most adaptable. The most.
Mm-hmm.
It's mutable, right? Which
Yeah.
is adaptability. And it's air, which is adaptability. So
Mm-hmm.
they're the most unstable sign of all, right? Besides Pisces, right? Pisces is a little less unstable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, Pisces is more sensitive, right? But Gemini is just, the wind blows, man, and it's a, oh yeah, they have that.
We're doing that now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they don't stay the course,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So it's gonna be interesting, man. And indeed, but hopefully we can squeeze her and you know get her to adapt to the right side. We'll see. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting
And
nonetheless.
she look in that bedroom.
He is not. It's not promising. It's not a lot of old. It's
I'm
not.
sorry, I'm sorry, man. She's not a bad looking chick, but man, I said, brother, if that's what it is, whoo, hey, that's some serious other than what I can understand.
Mhm.
I don't understand that. Right? Just me personally. I mean, that's my person. But everybody, being Osirian, you got to be able to get into somebody else's thought process and see their perspectives. But yeah, that's one I'm.
Well, that it's that and I don't mean I ain't trying to beat up on the sisters and nothing like that. Not even close to that. But that Chandra, Mangla, that's a tough.
Chandra Mongol, yeah, it's tough.
It's not. It's not. The women that I see with that heavy like that, and they have a hard time, man. Being in a relationship. So you gotta find a certain type of guy that just has that disposition that I mean, if the guy doesn't have, is not as much of an ox as you are,
Mm.
it's like the polar opposite. And
The
so,
rules they run right over you.
yeah. So, yeah, man, that's always a interesting. I mean, because you even see it with like Rihanna and stuff like that. They just you see them. They kind of get very
Belligerent.
or very diverse with the type of men that they entertain.
Hmm.
You know,
I was always wondering. I mean, Chris, you did wrong, man. Breezy, that
yeah.
was wrong, bruh. But certain men can't handle triggers, man. If
Hmm.
you start saying certain things, women know how to cut you,
Yeah,
right?
he's a martial guy as well.
Yes, he is, right?
Yeah.
And so that, but it was just too much, too little. I mean, too much with too little to be able to handle all of that, man.
Hmm.
I mean, and she's from the islands, man. They, them girls, a lot of island sisters from the islands, man. These don't play. They'll tell you in a minute, right? This is how it is. You can accept it, or you can be a man and take it, or you gonna react. Right.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm very familiar with the West Indian persuasion, man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, you know, you could deal with it, man. But it's a little it's a level of edginess, I'll say,
Mm-hmm.
that you may not be used to if you're not used to it.
Right. Right. It might rub you the wrong way. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed. But once you sift through the barrier,
Mm,
you can level, but it does take a level of maturity to kind of
mm.
get you over that hump.
Exactly. Exactly. My point exactly. It ain't like Chris Breezy grew up in a solid,
Yeah.
square home where, nah, he was there was things happening there too. So fire on
Hmm.
fire just breeds more fire. But you
Absolutely.
know, yeah, that Chandra Mongol yoga is a hard yoga for women. Anytime Mars is challenged with the moon, right? Where it be with the moon, right? Like
Hmm.
that's the Chandramanga of 147 or 10. Or if Mars is debilitated, that is another challenge because it's almost the same thing, really.
Yeah.
Because Mars is in Cancer, and the Cancer sign is here's a secret that most people don't know. Each sign does something very specific, meaning that Cancer, whatever is in it, grows. Whatever planet is in it, it grows, right? So if Jupiter's there, that's why it's exalted. It grows, right? Uh, if Mercury is there, right, it grows.
Hmm.
If Mars is there, it grows,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So Mars growing an emotional base, it just I don't care. It's repetitious, right? You will see it. Serena Williams has the same thing. But Serena Williams, right, has it in the fourth house of parenting, right, of the mother. But the thing is that because it is canceled, there is a Nietzsche Bang, but it's channeled and it's focused in sports, right, physical sports. That is a great thing for debilitated Mars because it loves to be able to express that emotion in various ways, anger in various. So it becomes once you see her on that
Jordan.
court, yeah,
Michael Jordan
exactly,
got the same thing. Yeah.
exactly. It's great for sports,
Hmm.
but outside of that realm or business, awesome, right?
Yeah.
Law, yeah, she kills it. But when she steps out into the realm of womanhood, yeah, it's a little rough, right? And
Yeah.
so you're right. She does have to have someone that is thick neck, big, big bull-headed person that can handle that brunt. And it probably becomes a stalemate because I mean, for all intents and purposes, I'm sure the guy is not a walkover type of just pushover dude, and he doesn't even look like that kind of guy, right?
No.
So, but look at if you look at Serena's marriage though, right? Well, did you see the other side of it then, right?
Yeah.
'Cause he's sitting over there and yeah, he's not running nothing, right?
Yeah, man.
That black woman runs that. You best believe that. I mean,
Yeah.
isn't it strange they both go? They go out. They bring something in the bed. They bring something else in the bed. I like. They both do. They both did.
Yeah, man. That's that's a whole nother a subject to cover. I mean, because black and right, black men get get a bad rap, man, in regards to
But look, they what?
yeah,
we that ain't there. That ain't that's what it's 90s, 80s now. It's a whole different ball game. Yeah.
yeah,
Marcel Barvet. I mean, you can go down the list. Zoe Saldana. Come on, right?
yeah. But also, yeah, nah, I ain't gonna go there.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, yeah,
I ain't gonna go there. I'll leave it alone.
for sure.
Indeed, indeed. But before we get into today's topic, you want to we do got a couple questions from Patreon. You want to dig into a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
All right, so All right. So first question is so we was talking about nodal returns, right?
Mm,
And actually, you know what? We answered this question because this is really a question about the Orobos, right?
right.
So we answered that on that episode. How that deals with
Same person.
how well basically we talked about it on that episode of Rahu K2 episode about what they wanted to know was what happens when you have a essentially you know where it's opposite. It's not necessarily a nodal return, but it's the opposite. Like if
Your robos.
yeah,
Yeah.
your robos. So we addressed that there. So
Mhm.
for your first question, check out the episode Rahu giveth, Ketu taketh away. All right, that's pretty much answered there. Right. Um, for your other question is basically, do we see any countries that um astrologically you can see and just in actuality countries that have a strong, robust, and fair voting system, right? Can you see that in their chart, or is it essentially across the board that we could see that there's some, kind of occult influence in the voting process in most countries during voting systems, voting season?
Hmm. Good question. So when we kind of take a look at countries at this point in the game, right?
Yeah,
In 2020, because the year 2000, completely different question, right?
yeah,
Year 1990, even more, even right, even different. Each of these kind of, as the years have gone on, politics has changed globally. We're living in a global society now. We just kind of still think we're in a in a in a in a world that deals with nations, and we are to some degree, but the world over is pretty much democratic, right? I mean, all major power countries, India is democratic, has been for a while. China is even democratic, even though they have a communist substructure, right? They're still voting, things of that nature.
yeah,
Russia, right, which is of course was known as a primarily communist country, right, voting. Um, most African nations are um, democracies. So democracy is the way of the world now, and the reason is because folks, capitalism is the way of the world, right? Capitalism is primarily supported by right democracy, right? Capitalism and communism were really the systems that were in vogue, not democracy and right communism. And because the world is capitalist, because the world has folded into a primarily democratic system, um, most countries really don't. It's to look at the country from a democratic purview would be to say, how do I find that in the chart? And they're all that way. So it would be like looking for something that's readily seen. It's just you already know that it's a given. But um, in America, right, which America is very different from other nations because America has a there's a book called The Destiny of America by Manly P. Hall. Many people should read it. Good book. But in it, right, in Manly P. Hall, 33rd Mason. Manly P. Hall is a 33rd and a third degree Mason, right? Wrote about the destiny of America. And in it, it very specifically states that this country is birthed through occult knowledge, right? It's birthed under a Masonic rule, right? And that Masonic rule instituted, right, certain processes for voting. Number one, they established an 8-year cycle, which is based on the Venus cycle, right? Because she elapses every 8 years, right? This is all pretty much subsumed into a book called Illusions of Choice. And it's a very good book that elucidates that Venus plays a very prominent primary role in when we make our decisions. I think we've covered in one of our shows. We mentioned it last,
Hmm.
right? So go back and check that show out because we did cover some of those things. But America is different in that our processes are all situated underneath, right? This whole country, this whole society is based under occult knowledge. Once you begin to understand that, Jordan Maxwell, excellent person to kind of watch in that regard, right? He's because it gives a lot of information on how society is structured, right, in an occult way.
Yeah.
So, really, to look at it from that perspective, most countries are democratic. So, to have the occult kind of side in it, most countries really aren't situated in the basis in the way that America is. Now, I'm not sure about England and France and those kind of European nations. They may have something of that nature, and it'd be a good research project to do. But from what I know, all countries that are major players in the world are democratic by some means. So, you know, what you could do is look to see if in that country, if the democratic process is one that is viable or that it is taken to a level where um, it's taken to a level where it is like here in America, right? In America, they have parties, they have they have the DNC convention, they have all kind of different things where it becomes um, almost like entertainment, right? In fact, that's what it is, really.
It's
There's two
marketing.
stars. Yeah, it's marketing, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's here in America, right? The moon is in the third house of America, right? In Aquarius, and that third house is the democratic process, right? Bar none. I mean, if you wanted to know what house it would be the third house, right? Because the third house deals with initiation, drive, and trying to take on and make decisions.
Yeah.
So, to hope just to kind of really nutshell it, if you really understand it, that the world is democratic, and only certain nations that are power structures probably have some type of occult um, basis to their voting system. You could probably check out England. Of course, America does. You may want to check out France because France is also a nation that has a strong Masonic background. So I would say it that way that look to the charts of those major players in the West, and you may see some of those propensities.
Indeed. 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 We got one other question. And basically it was how what could be some indications of someone getting with a foreign spouse?
Mm. Um, we always look to um, the seventh house first because the house itself, right, is the container or the domicile or the abode of the mate or the
Mhm.
partner, long term partner. And so, if we see that particular house slash ruler or lord, right, or dispositor, whatever you want to call it, if it's anywhere near dealing with Rahu in any way, right, it's a good propensity or chance that person's going to have a foreign mate
Mhm.
because Rahu rules things that are taboo, things that are outside the norm, right, things that are arrhythmic or imbalanced in a major way, right, and so or out of sorts, right. You remember Sesame Street? Which one of these kids is doing his own thing, right? Right. Well, that
Mhm.
box is where Rahu is, right? The one that's doing his own thing, right?
Yeah.
And so, Rahu influencing the seventh house slash seventh lord or Venus, right? Because Venus is the indicator or the karaka or the significator of marriage in a chart. So if Venus is with Rahu or involved with Rahu, meaning under aspect from Rahu, under a fifth or ninth aspect, in Rahu, one of Rahu's co-ruled signs, which is Swati or Ardra or Shastabishak, right?
Mhm.
Or, right, say if Rahu's in the seventh, boom, right? Person's propensity to get a foreign mate is there. Um, But the 12th house is foreign lands. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes Venus in the 12th or the seventh lord in the 12th can also indicate marriage, right? Outside of the borders of this nation, which obviously you would have to get married to a foreigner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are some of the indications as well that would indicate, a foreign mate. The 12th lord sometimes conjunct Venus or in the 12th house can also indicate those things. So, there's various combinations we could look at to see. But those are some of the things, some of the basic general hard rules that we follow.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. So definitely, hopefully that answered your questions for you. Um, and yeah, for all, all the other patrons and stuff like that, keep them coming. You know what I mean? Keep them coming, and I could definitely see that people are definitely listening to the episodes pretty deeply
Mm-hmm.
and having questions. One quick thing before we jump into today's topic, what we're about to do right now is wanted to, put everybody on notice. We do have the Cosmic Convos t-shirts. Now this is a tank. We do have that. We do have a woman's version of this as well. But we also got a plain t-shirt as well. And then we also have um, it'll be coming real soon. There's another t-shirt that we've been teasing about for a while that's going to be available as well. So you can definitely, go to, on Instagram and check in and hit the website, push it forward on Cosmic Convos and go into the store. And you can definitely cop one of these as well or whatnot,
I'll be definitely getting mine.
Indeed, indeed. Yeah, we got these, and then we got to finalize some stuff out. We're gonna talk about it offline. I survived Rahu.
Oh, right, right. Boom, big old Rahu. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's coming too. So stay tuned to that, or whatnot. So y'all definitely go out there and check that out, man, and show some support there. And definitely got more to come on that angle and whatnot. But getting into today's episode, kind of dealing with what, kind of the kind of underpinnings of what's happening today in regards to just, you got COVID, just a lot of different things that's on our radar. Thought it'd be a good idea to explore, the topic of health,
Mm-hmm.
in regards to astrology, what type of things are we looking for? How's good or poor health viewed from a actual chart and transit and different things like that, just to put that on our radar so we can know kind of what our disposition is and maybe some things we need to be more mindful of and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. So Rob, where'd you want to start off on this conversation, right?
Uh, First place, the good place to start is, the value of having a correct system,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is invaluable. And when you have a system that is going to pinpoint very specific things about your health, about your proclivities, about your tendencies, right? Those are things that you can't just take lightly. Those are things that we just can't say, well, one thing is the same as the other. Aries is the same as Taurus. Pisces is the same as Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
Very different. In
Yeah.
fact, just to give an example, right? And I'm talking about the difference between sidereal and tropical. 24 degrees difference, right? This is major. This is not a degree. This is not 10. This is almost a whole sign difference between the two systems. And it will be a whole sign different quite soon, right? Within the next 300 years, right? So the thing is that Pisces, for example, right, has a disposition for kappa related disorders. Now, kappa is what is called a dosha, right? Or a kind of way that we classify body types, right? a lot of it's, it's always called Ayurveda, right? And Ayurveda is a science that's tied to Jyotish or astrology, Vedic astrology. They're sister sciences, right? You've heard of ectodermic, uh, endodormic, and ectomorphic, endomorphic, and there's a third one. It's similar to those particular dispositions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you have a vata, which is the kind of first stage of manifestation, and it deals with more of the nervous system and transmission of information and things of that nature. Then you have pitta,
Mm-hmm.
right, which is the heat index, which is the actual fire, drive, muscle, heart, liver, things like that. And you have kapha, which is more of the tissue, fat, right? Things that kind of hold things together. Kappa is like a container. And so, really, it's truly translated in Chinese medicine simply as qi, right? Yang and yin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Vata is more of a qi disorder, right? Or qi oriented because it can go back and forth, right? Pitta is obviously yang issues, right? And Kappa yin issues. Well, being that Pisces is a yin sign, right? Or a day or night sign or an internal sign, and it's ruled by Jupiter, and it's a water sign. Well, those things indicate Kappa issues, right? Kappa issues are weight gain, right? The propensity to hold water, right? Having excess mucus, right? Inability to stave off illnesses for long periods of time, right? Um, it just means that you're more of internalizing type of energy, and you have a passive disposition, just like
Mm-hmm.
Pisces. Kappa is almost similar in many ways. So, right, if you're born, right, it's a March 16th. No. So let's do another date. March 29th, right? They're saying you're an Aries, sun sign, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're Aquarius. You're the sign before. I'm sorry, excuse me. On that date, you are technically Pisces, but they're saying you're Aries, right? We're gonna go back one, excuse me, because I'm using Aquarius as the ascendant. So let's say you're born February the no March 1st, right? March 1st would be Aquarius in one system, and it's
Mm-hmm.
Pisces in another, right? You're truly Aquarius, but they're saying you're Pisces. So let's say if I diagnose that particular disposition, I'm going to be treating kappa disorders. I'm going to be treating excess weight gain, water retention,
Mm-hmm.
right? Emotional dispositions, possibly depression, because Pisces can take on these energies because it's called a upadaya sign, which means it's footless, so it can go any which way,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm going to be looking at, of course, there's many other things that I'm going to look at in the chart, but just generally speaking, if we just use the hard, fast rule that look, this sign versus this sign, those disorders are not going to, because a person's going to be, well, I don't really have those problems. So we look at now Aquarius is the sign before, and that's what the person really would be, right? Now Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn deals with Vata issues as far as hard to get sleep, constantly thinking, right? Constantly agitated or constantly in motion. Vata has heart problems, has a challenge sitting down, right? They can have stomach issues because of the constant thought process in the mind.
Yeah.
Literally, their nerves can be wired kind of weird, right? So completely different process of thought, different diseases, different treatments, the whole bit. So by that alone shows that, right, this information is serious. You have to take it serious. You can't just throw it caution to the wind and say, well, it's all the same, because I'm going to be treating you just like a doctor would if I ran tests and I say, well, you have Crohn's disease, right? But the tests don't say Crohn's disease, they say kidney disease, right? I'm
Yeah.
treating you for Crohn's disease, but you really have kidney disease. So now I'm going to get a malpractice lawsuit. You're going to get sicker. there's a whole systematic process of things that happen from misdiagnosis. This is the reality that we're dealing with astrology, especially using Western astrology.
Well, I mean, even in my own chart, I experienced that to a certain degree to where, my son is debilitated in my chart.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went through, my son Dasha, I was a sickly kid, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but, in Western astrology, my son is in Scorpio.
Mm.
Sun does pretty well in Scorpio.
Does very well in Scorpio.
Right. So, I mean, like, I was, there's a Nietzsche bong there. Right. So I was able, persevere through it. Strive in a couple different areas because of it. But there still was a sickness associated with it during that time period.
What was it? Was it asthma or what was it? What was he?
It was
Right.
asthma. Yeah, it was
And
asthma.
and your son is where?
Fourth house.
Boom. Right. And
Yep.
the fourth house is lower lungs.
Mm-hmm.
Lungs, lower lungs. Third house is upper lungs.
Yep.
And isn't I mean I'm just saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you see what I'm saying right there. And I just say, right, I'm treating you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, yeah, no, I don't see any lung issues. Right? No, you should be fine. Because you would be Leo ascendant, right?
Yeah.
And with Sun in Leo, I mean Sun in Scorp in the fourth. Oh, you be have man, yo, boy, right? That's power. And see what I'm saying? You're right. I mean, that's a great example, man. Great
Mm-hmm.
example. Great example.
Yeah.
So just showing the power of this knowledge, you can diagnose.
And the funny other part about it too, just a tidbit. So when I hit my Mars Dasha
Mm-hmm.
is
It's
when
stock.
and so I got Mars in the fourth house too. That's my Nietzsche bong. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's when I outgrew the asthma.
Yep.
And
Isn't
then
that
my Mars,
crazy?
yeah,
Right there, boom.
yeah.
Right, that exchange, boom.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
that's crazy. But I'm just saying, like, you can see it, right? It's written. It rolls, right? We don't have to squeeze, adjust, or tweak, right? It's
Yeah.
there, and so that's the power. I mean, you can diagnose with this stuff, man. I mean, really, when you get that power of knowing this person's gonna have a serious illness, and here's the nature of the illness, right? Then you can treat the illness, right? That's power. Because then you can see, people, a lot of times people don't know. And we'll talk about that. I don't want to digress, but because we're going to talk about that in a minute. But nonetheless, right, when you know this knowledge is 100% bona fide certified, you can look with a sense of confidence without even flinching to know that this is what's going on, right? If you ever wondered why certain Western astrologers, not all, but some of them, many of them, they take a pause in a minute before they start. Most Vedic astrologers, ones I know, especially out of India, they can't wait to start talking. They're like, hold on. They don't want you to say anything, right?
Yeah.
And they go, I mean, down like a laundry list, and you sitting there like, and they're really waiting for you to say stop. No, that's wrong, right? But it doesn't happen too often.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what I mean? Like, it's just the power of having accurate knowledge really gives you the ability to really intuit and know what's around the corner with regards to many things, not just illness, but marriage, a profession, travel, right? All those things, right? We can see clearly exactly what's going on, right? So, getting into some specifics and leaving that alone because I just wanted to clarify that real important point that this astrology that we're dealing with here is able to diagnose. It has the power of literally going beyond Western medicine to some degree
Mm-hmm.
because it can see things that might be a little funny or a little odd or a little hard to diagnose, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing, starting off with getting into what it is and how we look at it, the first thing we always look at, of course, is the base buildup of a person's chart from the ascendant, moon, and sun. Right? We look at that and we surmise, okay, is this person well integrated? Or are they not well integrated? If they are, then how and why and so forth. But the basis of what we look at is the ascendant. That's the first step. The ascendant is going to be the physical body, that's where we know that the health is going to take place or ill health is going to take place. So that's always a key note that we look for is the ascendant, the health of the ascendant, the health of the ascendant Lord. If there's any uh, 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 aspects, or if it's surrounded, like when planets can surround the ascendant, both of them like malefics, that can squeeze that particular area into a tight space where it becomes compromised physically.
Mm-hmm.
So the ascendant is primal, right? If you have a strong ascendant, you have strong health, right? You have the ability to stave off things, right? Your body responds immediately. You don't take long to do anything internally as far as healing is concerned. That's a rule, right? So if, in fact, there are yogas that specifically state that if the ascendant is weak in what we call Shadbala, right, which is the six strengths, that person has a weak immune system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the ascendant is key, crucial, primal to understand what is we're looking at with the health. Now, the next thing that we look at is the sixth house, right? Slash sixth lord. There's a yoga called the Harsha Yoga, right? Harsha Yoga is when the sixth lord is in the sixth house. And that yoga creates strong, robust health, depending, of course, on the planet as well, right? But in the sixth house, we look for the strength of that lord and the strength of that house, because that is also the ability to stave off disease. Now, it actually is the process of what I would consider to be the kidney energy in regards to Chinese medicine in the body, right? Kidney yang specifically. And that ability for kidney yang to support, because see, the sixth house deals in the it deals in the intestine area. But when you look at the body, we don't segregate it like as in these kind of slices. It runs together to some degree. So the sixth house has an affinity with the seventh to some degree. They have a connection. And so the sixth is really the adrenals, but it's also the adrenals. So we say the adrenals because we're in the West, but in the East, it's the kidney yang, right? The ability to stave off disease, the ability
Mm-hmm.
to have a backbone. That's why the sixth house is the house of fighting, right?
Jing.
Right?
It's Jing.
Jing is Jing, right?
Yeah.
Kidney yang, though, is the expression of the externalization of that Jing, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what the sixth house is, because it deals with enemies, right?
Yeah.
It deals with fighting. It deals with competition. It deals with disease.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that is that energy zone that we deal with that strengthens the back, gets you right. Look at Nip, right? Nip had the 4 planets in the 6th house. That's a pretty heavily weighted 6th house. So
Mm-hmm.
it's strong because remember, stelliums create a lot of strength in that house. But it also, we talked about the detriment to it as well. But nonetheless, in regards to health, it's fairly good because that means a person is addressing or constantly staving off or fighting internally to keep things healthy. So
Yeah.
that's the house we begin to look at to say, can the person deal with stress? Can they deal with, right? Because that's what the 6th house deals with, is stress. All kidney yang stuff, right? Kidney
Yeah.
stuff. The 5th house deals with more with the liver, right? Proper, right? Because the 5th house is the house of sight, right? And liver, right, is your ability to see. That's why you get jaundice when you have liver problems when you're a baby,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the 6th house, right, we look to see the health ability of the person to fight off illness. It's like the 1st house is the basis of the body in regards to the baseline. Like, is this particular person overall healthy, and is this person now specifically healthy, right? And that 6th house says specifics about health. Now, here's the thing. Remember, if I'm putting you on the wrong ascendant, for example, right? Let's say I put you off in Pisces ascendant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pisces ascendant has Leo as the 6th house. That means the person many times can have issues with their heart, right? It makes sense because Pisces are Ubadiah sign. They can be wishy-washy. They can be pushed any way. They can be pulled. And the heart, not just in the sense of the physical heart, but the heart in the sense of also the emotional sense, the ability to be stable, strong, resistant, right? Determined, like Leo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that they may have some issues with their with their heart. They may have issues also with the government. A lot of Piscean, the priesthood type energy doesn't go well with governmental
Bill
royal
Cosby.
disposition.
Bill
Exactly.
Cosby.
Exactly. So you see
Yeah.
what I mean? You
Yeah.
see, you can start to see, and it can also translate into back problems because Leo also deals with the back, right? So again, right, if I'm just mid-diagnosing you and I say, well, no, you're really Aries ascendant, but you really are Pisces, I'm gonna treat you wrong. So again, right, just to show that it's important to not only have the right information, but understand the houses that are involved in the implications because each ascendant is going to have something different,
Yeah.
right? Now, and here's this is how important this stuff is, folks. So this stuff is so powerful that we know, number one, you should never get a surgery during a full moon. Never. Never. Right? If the doctor says you're about to have a surgery during full moon, see if you can reschedule. If it's
Unless,
if it's
unless you get shot.
and you might get shot during that full moon, right? Right? I know about that, right?
Yeah.
Been there, done that. Got the T-shirt, right?
You got
So, right, but right, of course, anything not non-emergent. I'm saying, right, if
yeah.
you have to, if you can plan, you use astrology not to plan around full moons for surgery. In fact, one of my old Ayurvedic teachers when I was in college for traditional Chinese medicine. Um, One of my old Ayurvedic teachers came to me for a consultation. And so picked everything right. The sixth house was strong, right? She's Cancer ascendant. So her sixth house was really strong. Mars was there. I think Sun was there. I saw her, I think maybe 3 months after that semester. And she came up to me and she's like, oh my God, the surgery was over. It was clean. There was no issues. You were dead on. I'm like, thank you.
Good.
Wow. So, right, knowing those particular little small innuendos, you never get a surgery when there's a full moon, nor do you get a surgery when the moon is passing over the organ or the sign of the organ that you're dealing with. So, for example, if the moon's passing over Leo, you don't want to get surgery on your heart if you're having heart surgery. If it's or if it's in Leo, liver surgery as well. If it's in Virgo, abdominal surgery, right? If it's in Libra, surgery on the prostate or the ovaries. You don't want to do surgery on the day the moon is in the sign that represents that organ. That's another little side tidbit, right? Um, so just little small things, just that alone, right, can further your health and impact you in a major way. But the other thing is that this is all about timing, right? And timing is crucial in understanding the onset of disease, right? Because prevention is really the key,
Yeah.
right? And so if we can prevent illness, right, you do it yourself, right, justice. Now, planet wise, right, there's certain planets that obviously would give a propensity for illness. Number one, any debilitated planet is going to give you propensity for illness, right? Any debilitated planet,
Mm-hmm.
based on whatever that planet represents and where it's placed, right? Those two things are dead on, right? You can look to a debilitated planet and usually, not always, but usually, right, it's going to be something going on in that particular area.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing we know is that, and let's just give an example, right? For example, a debilitated sun, right, can easily talk about a weakened immune system or a weakened vitality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or weak heart, one of the three, right? Wherever it's placed, that organ system or that area also will be impacted. Right? And the thing is that you can know these things and take advantage and literally reverse them. Right? You don't have to be victim, right, to ill health. Because there's rituals, there's mantras, all kind of stuff we do, right, to put things in order.
Yeah.
Um, And that is another stark difference between this system and the West. They don't have mantras like that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the other thing is we look for the eighth house as well, right? The eighth house is a house of chronic disease. See, the sixth house is acute disease, right? The eighth house is chronic illness that you're typically born with, right? Um, Congenital diseases that are really tough to deal with, right? That can literally, that can kill you for all intents and purposes. And the sixth house can too, but it's acute, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can be dealt with, it can be managed, it can be controlled, right? The eighth house more or less has to be lived with, right? And not just managed, but actually there has to be a different lifestyle set because of the seriousness of the eighth house. So, those are the two we always look for: 6, 8 debilitated planets, right? Or 3, rather. Um, the other thing is the planetary periods that kick in, right? So, if you're running, and here's one thing I've learned, right? Personally, Saturn dashas slow you down. They slow everything down. I don't care, even if you're young, believe it or not, right? Many times, people with Saturn dasha, especially if Saturn is compromised or not in a very strong position, they can run that period. And like you said, as soon as that period stops, right, they can, the health can get a little better. But here's the strange thing: Saturn period runs into Mercury. They're both Vata ruled type dispositions with regards to planets. Saturn and Mercury are Vata oriented. So a lot of times, because the periods run concurrent, right, it may get better, but there may still be some onside of some issues with regards to um, energetic imbalances. So the period of time that runs is crucial, right? Many people notice that when Jupiter Dasha runs, they're very healthy, even if Jupiter is debilitated, right? It's just they're very healthy. They don't have too many illnesses. Their overall life is fairly smooth because the liver rules that process of smooth flow of energy.
Mm-hmm.
So again, right, timing is crucial. Now transits always play a big role, right? Like I said, the moon transiting is a big piece and factor in surgeries, but Mars transiting can create illnesses. Saturn's transit definitely can create illnesses, meaning Saturn in the ascendant, Saturn in the sixth house, Saturn conjunct the sun, Saturn conjunct the moon, Saturn conjunct the ascendant lord. All those things can indicate issues when that planet is on the move. Mars also can create quick issues, but those issues are usually oriented through surgery and they can be addressed fairly quickly. Saturn
Mm-hmm.
obviously is chronic, long term, drawn out illnesses. So these periods, these transits, right? These dashas, these transits, they all have an effect on health, right? Not only that, of course, age has an effect on health, right?
Yeah.
Because once you hit your first Saturn return, your frontal lobes turn on. So your physiology changes.
Yeah.
So by the second Saturn return, you can guarantee, right, that if you're not in fairly decent health, there's going to be some ailments, some issues. That's just with age, right? Because Saturn is the planet of time. So understanding these implications, right? I mean, there are many, 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 many different factors we have to look at. The ascendant lord can be in the 12th house, right? I mean, there are levels that we stack that literally say, okay, here's the first level. What's the propensity for illness? 25 to 30%. Then we have next level, right? 50 to 60% chance of illness. Then the next level is 80 to 90. Right, so there's different levels of this as well. You could have 1 or 2 placements and it won't do anything adverse to your health.
Yeah.
But if there's a systemic thing called confluence, and confluence is when we have a trifecta, right,
Mm-hmm.
or more, right, because you can have more than 3 factors to create a manifestation, but you have to have at least 3, right? That's why people say, "Well, I got this, and my sun signs that, no, we don't do that in this astrology. We have to have at least 3 things, at least three. If not, we can go along. We can have 10 things, right? And it all point to the same thing. But
Mm-hmm.
that means that it's emphatic in karma. It's written, right? Some things are amenable to change, some things aren't. And that's where you understand karma in an astrological purview, from the astrological purview. But again, the timing of this is crucial. And so we've got a few people we could look at, because I'm not going to go through the whole Arishta process, which are afflictions, right? You have aspects of malefics, you have evil associations or conjunctions, you have just placements that are just challenging overall, specific degrees. I'm not going to get into those specifics because we would be here for a while, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you this much though: 22 degrees of any fixed sign is usually challenging, right? 22 degrees of any fixed sign, right, can be an issue. But right, I think we've got some good people we can look at here to really give some clarity about how this works. Angelina Jolie is a great example to kind of pull up and review, because she has some serious things going on with health, and she was made aware of it before she even had anything happen health wise. And so, even though she was forewarned and forearmed, she still, right, had to come across and run on and deal with cancer. And her chart shows that she's cancer ascendant. Now, folks, when I say this, I mean, you got to really take into consideration. And let me explain. Go back and explain Angelina Jolie a little bit better. So, she had a double mastectomy,
Mm-hmm.
where it removed the breast, right? Because her mother, right, was diagnosed with, in fact, died from ovarian cancer. Um, and her mother also had breast cancer, right? Her auntie died from breast cancer, right? Um, I mean, it just runs through the feminine, uh, the women in her bloodline, on the mother's side. So, considering that, right, she's cancer ascendant. Now, when I say that, automatically it should click. It says she had her breast removed, right? She's cancer ascendant. So that part of the body is automatically going to be the one that will be, right, apropos to have issues,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because cancer rules the chest area, right? It is the breast of the woman itself. So literally her ascendant denotes, right, that part of the body as being something to pay attention to. Now, secondly, right, she has the fourth lord, right, Venus. It rules the fourth house, and the fourth house is what again?
The
Breasts,
chest,
the
breast.
chests, the
Mm-hmm.
breasts, right? The fourth lord is in the ascendant. So what that does is creates a connection bodily to the from the chest slash breasts to the physiology or overall baseline of who she is. So that's a very important part of her body. Now, going deeper, right? Her ascendant lord ruling her body. Remember, we said we always look to the ascendant lord first. It is in the ninth house. Now, it's not positioned apparently in a challenging disposition because it's conjunct Jupiter in its own sign and it's conjunct Mars. You would say, that doesn't seem to be too challenging. But that moon, right, is aspected, right, by Saturn. Now, Saturn, first rate malefic, is aspecting, and simultaneously, Mars is conjuncting. So that's another malefic. So you have two malefics aspecting, or really honing in on the moon, which is the ascendant lord, and is the significator or indicator for breasts.
Yeah.
Now we have something serious, right? Not only that, right? Mars aspects Saturn, and Saturn aspects Mars. And the moon is caught in this particular, right, pattern. Right? It's caught in the pattern. So when you see it, it's like, whoa. And then if you look at the moon's difference between Mars, it's only 2 degrees. That's extremely tight for a malefic conjunction. Not only that, if you count count aspects, right? Mars aspects 4, which is Saturn, 7, and 8, and the 8th aspect is the 4th house. Right? All of this shows she's got a lot going on with her breasts. Right? Serious business. Now, timing is crucial, right? So she's going to have to deal with this particular part of the body when the dasha period runs. And so she is she through the 90s. No, wait a minute. She's in a Venus dasha in the 90s. Yes, 1995 is when she begins that dasha period. In the 2000s, and remember, Venus is the longest dasha period, which Dwal Natir, right? Because it could be the shortest, and Mars could be the longest, or Saturn, right? Even Saturn, though, is pretty long, right? But Venus is the longest, right? And so she runs it from 95 to 2015. Well, from that period, that's when she has the breast removed, right? That's when she is diagnosed. In fact, she's diagnosed with cancer, ovarian cancer, March 2015. That's right before she switches to the moon dasha. I'm sorry, excuse me, sun dasha, excuse me.
Yeah, son.
Right before, like March 2015 is when she's diagnosed. And here's the thing, she went through the length so she's already done a major deal on trying to stop cancer. Because she knows, she's been forewarned, she had an 87% chance, right, of getting cancer. Right? And then if you look at it, check out that aspect. Look at Saturn's degree. That's 23 degrees, right? 2357. Look at Jupiter's degree. Right?
Yeah.
Saturn is the indicator or karaka of disease. It aspects the 6th house and it aspects the 6th lord by degree. Right? Showing clearly, right, an issue, right, as far as health is concerned. But the moon is in the middle of all this. Right? So during that period, Venus, right, is ruled by the moon. So in that period, she's going to deal with those issues, right? Again, showing illness runs concurrent with the dashas, with the timing of life, right? So she's a great example. Another one is kind of odd, but one that not kind of has been rightfully so kind of dropped to the background, and it wasn't so for a long time. He was actually he was looked upon as a leper for a long time. People wouldn't mess with him. Now he's one of the richest men in the sports industry. Magic Johnson, right? Julius Erving, right? And so we all know, right? Everyone knows he was diagnosed with HIV. Right? Now remember, and you have to understand, right? Again, the ascendant is key. The ascendant is key. First of all, right, he's got a couple of planets in his ascendant, right? You got Uranus, Sun, Mercury, right? Wouldn't do much, right? But the ascendant lord is where again? Sixth house. House of illness, right? Not only that, what is sitting adjacent to it 5 degrees away? Saturn. Which is the karaka indicator, significator of disease. Well, remember I said everything is timing? When was he diagnosed? Or when did he come out with HIV? 1991. The beginning of the moon dasha.
And folks, when we talk about dasha, it's this little.
The little area of Vimshatari would indicate that those dates.
Yeah.
So you can clearly see March of 91. Boom. Right. That's when he begins, and that's the year that he announces it. You can't get no better than that, folks. This is showing you that this is all written. People say, well, because tell me, he didn't have any free will when he didn't know who he was sleeping with. I mean, he did to some degree, right? He had a choice, but blindly so. He didn't know who was who, right? So getting it, right, automatically shows, right? And here's the strange thing. The seventh lord, which is Saturn, which is wife, she sticks by him.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's by him. Saturn is by the moon. He's the moon, ascendant lord, and she's Saturn. Isn't that something? And she's stuck with him through the disease. Ha! Crazy. Right? Crazy stuff, right? So, again, showing, right? These things are timing. This is oriented towards timing. We can see this through timing, right? Another good one is T-Boz, right? She has sickle cell anemia. Now, let me say this, folks, and I'm saying this with a degree of caution. Listen to me, right? There are some things that we could say in general, right, about certain signs. Not always that this is this way, but you do see some themes run concurrently with Virgos, right? And they usually have health issues. Well, if you think about it for a second, they're born to deal with health issues. Why? Because the sun is the ruler of the 12th house of loss, right? So the sun, right, ruling the house of loss, the sun is your chi, life force, energy, robustness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ability to stave off things initially. It's weakened, right? Because it rules the 12th house of things that are cause you expenditure. So many times Virgos can be born in with issues with health, right? And what happens is they can manage or deal with issues or get over them, but it causes them to be oriented to helping and healing others as well, right? But her ascendant Lord, right, is in a very peculiar position. It's in the 8th house.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, we said 6th house is acute illnesses, right? Magic had an acute illness, right? He's still alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Angelina Jolie, it was chronic, right? But it was a 6th house and 8th house both in there, but primarily through Saturn, which is a karak or indicator of the 8th house. And Saturn rules the 8th lord. Saturn is the 8th lord. So again, it still was involved. 8th house is still involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, T-Boz, right? Her ascendant lord is in the 8th. Number one. Many times ascendant lord in the 8th house. Let's say if it's healthy, a lot of times a person just doesn't like their body, right? They don't feel comfortable in their own skin. They want to transform it, change it, right? Augment it. Many times people will go through plastic surgery with the ascendant lord in the 8th house. Many
Mm-hmm.
times. But let's just say that's not the case, and person doesn't think about that. Health can be a major issue. I remember I said she's Virgo ascendant already, so her chi is kind of lightened up a little bit, right? The sun is not in a great position, even though it's exalted in the 8th house. It's conjunct Saturn. So this is an exalted planet conjunct a debilitated planet in the house of transformation, change, death, and sudden events, right? So her whole life has been plagued with this. Her ascendant lord the ascendant is the jump off. The ascendant is the starting point. So if the ascendant lord is in the 8th, and look, her ascendant degree is 2957, right? It's on the cusp. Doesn't not do bad, but doesn't do too good either.
Mm-hmm.
But the ascendant lord is in the 29th degree of Aries. I mean, now she's got 29 degrees in the ascendant, 29 degrees the ascendant Lord is at. That's rough,
Yeah.
right? That creates some serious instability health wise. Now, it's in a combustion / fight, because you got to understand, Saturn being debilitated in with the sun being exalted, that's a fight, right? That's a straight up, it's not a planetary war, no, but that's a fight in the house, right? That's like the criminal, right, being with the cop, right? It just in the same in the prison cell, right? Not in this, they're in the prison cell together, right? Because they're in the same 10-degree zone. I look at it 10 degrees. If the planets apart 10 degrees, they're in the same house. If they're in the same 10 within 10 degrees, they're in the same room. And if they are within less than a degree, they're literally touching each other.
Yeah.
So, right, they're in the same room. They're in the cell because the eighth house is like jail. Right, that's how I envision it. Right, so the eighth house is like jail. You got a cop, a top cop, which is sun exalted, and then you got the horrible, like criminal of all criminals, right, killer. They're in the cell together, and she's a bystander
Mm-hmm.
because she's the ascendant Lord. That's problems. Could you imagine being in a cell with these two individuals going at it constantly? Your chi would be lowered. You wouldn't be able to think properly. You wouldn't be able to do anything properly. So literally, her body is not able to function viably, and that illness, sickle cell, right, which is obvious, genetic, it does carry on, right. But again, showing that this person has illnesses from birth.
You know, another thing too, and this might be a bit of a stretch, but the nature of sickle cell is kind of that,
It
right?
is, isn't it?
You know, it's you have the different cells that's sickle shaped that cling together and they get into almost a war with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, guess what? What is Saturn's symbol?
sickle.
Mm,
Hmm.
mm. And Saturn is conjuncting the Sun, which is the 12th Lord.
Hmm.
Hospitalization.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, folks, this is dead on. You see it, and this is lifetime stuff, folks. She's born, 70? So she's
Hmm.
born into a end of a Venus dasha. But right after the Venus dasha, she starts the Sun dasha when she's what, 9, right? So and Sun is in the eighth, getting in that fight. It rules the 12th. She's gonna experience that health illness
Hmm.
from jump. Then, right, she's in the Moon dasha. Moon is in the fourth, right? But Moon is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is aspected by these three planets. So again, that period of time again as well is going to have systemic problems,
Hmm.
right? Mars dasha is Mars rules those three planets, right? Again, issues, right? Rahu in the sixth house of illness, right? And it's ruled by Saturn. Again, taking this is a stellium as well, right? Remember, stelliums are going to always have this pull back and forth to this house, right? Because some way, somehow, somewhere, it's going to lead back to connect to that house, and it's the eighth house of chronic illnesses.
Hmm.
She's in a Jupiter dasha now. Jupiter's in the second, but it's still being beat up on by Saturn and Sun, right? By
Hmm.
aspect. So Jupiter will give her more robust health in an older age, but at the same time, those issues are still there. It's still underneath and undergirding those periods of time.
So
So
so in that Saturn dasha, she probably gonna have to really get
uh,
real fixated back on it and really,
lasting to that Saturn dasha is going to be a stretch
yeah.
because she's already 50, right? And that'll be 66
Hmm.
as she gets there. And from 66, yeah, she might
Yeah.
make it. She might make it if she's careful. Yeah, she have to be extreme. It didn't diet now comes into play because it's a second house,
Yeah.
and so diet, de-stressing, proper exercise, making sure you know. What I mean, she has to live a clean, extremely clean lifestyle. Jupiter likes clean lifestyles.
Hmm.
Uh, then she could probably get. Yeah, she could get there. She could get
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when that Saturn dasha hits, that's boom, right? Now we're talking 8th house again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's serious. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's serious. So, this folks, this is just written. These things are written. That's why we call it a destiny. We call it destiny. It's not something we just say, okay, well, you're here and you can just do whatever. No, there's a plan, right? There is a plan. There is something
Mm-hmm.
that is inherently that you are here to deal with, whether it be positive, negative, or in between.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the last person I kind of want to touch on is Missy Elliott. She has Graves' disease. Now, I'm not too keen. I know Graves' disease deals with the thyroid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know it can give you some other systemic issues, but it's not deadly, right? It's not deadly. It's not. I've never heard of someone dying from grief. It doesn't because I haven't heard of it. Doesn't happen. But I just don't hear often that someone died of Graves' disease, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it is a disease of hyperthyroidism. So the thyroid, right? Now let's go to the ascendant. And her chart is actually pretty strong. I mean, she really doesn't have too many issues. And let me say this, folks. If you want to know about mental illnesses, you always look to the moon, right? We haven't touched on anyone with any mental illnesses, right? But mental illnesses are always diagnosed through the moon, right? And the moon being in an extremely compromised position. You will know, right? The person has something going on with their mind. But with Missy, right, she has a very strong chart. I mean, look, she's got Sun in the ninth, Venus is in the ninth, Mercury's in the ninth, in its own sign. Mercury's in its own. She got a very, 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 very healthy chart overall. Saturn's in the 8th house, right? Saturn in the 8th house, guess what, folks? Makes you live long, right? So it gives you longevity.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always something, right? So the Karaka for the 3rd house is Mars. It's with Rahu. It's exalted too. She has an exalted Mars in the 4th. And look at that. Mars is exalted by degree. She should deal with Kamala. Right? We need to throw her on Kamala because she got the exact opposition to Kamala by degree, less than a minute. Right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
her Mars is exalted, so she can control that martial energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Strong immune system too, right? That's why she won't die from it. I'm telling you, she will be able to live for quite a while with this illness, but it is there. So if we look at things from the ascendant, the 3rd house is the indicator of the throat, right? 2nd house can be as well, right? But we talk about ears, nose, and throat. We're talking about between the 2nd and the 3rd house because the ear, right, is connected, right, to the throat. But look again, right? The third for first of all for Libras, right? Jupiter's not the greatest planet, right? There is a author by the name of Bhavaratana, and he says Jupiter doesn't do bad for Libra, but it doesn't do great for Libra.
Yeah.
It's called a functional malefic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in functional malefics, a positive planet, a strong positive planet, Jupiter or Venus, can become a planet that does has some issues or does some have some karmic recompense to it. And so Jupiter is that planet for Libra, one of them. And so being or ruling the 6th house, right? It's in the 2nd house. Now, the 2nd house is technically the throat as well. I mean, remember I said the body's not like, I'm gonna take this piece and it's separate from this piece. Remember the old song, the knee bones connected to the right. So it's
Yeah.
all integrated, right? But when we look at it, we're looking between the 2nd and the 3rd house. Well, the 3rd lord goes to the 2nd house, right? And the 6th lord goes to the 2nd house, which would indicate issues in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Saturn is aspecting it, right, within 4 degrees. So again, Saturn is the indicator of illness and disease, and it's directly aspecting that Jupiter. Now, if you look at it from the moon, Jupiter is in the third from the moon, and that would also indicate issues again with potentially the area of the throat, right? So this also shows again, right, not chronic illness, right, but illness nonetheless. And then the Dasha periods, she was diagnosed in 2011. Well, what Dasha is she in?
Saturn.
Boom. Right? Again, showing you perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we could use example, we can use solid examples. We haven't talked about transits. We haven't talked about anything in that regard. We're just talking about pure Dasha systems.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Clearly, within the Dasha system, everything's articulated because we use the Dasha system first, then the transit. Right? Not the transit, then the Dasha. So it really does show a great degree of illness. There's other things we didn't cover just because for the sake of time, but Angelina Jolie in her chart, the moon is all through the Vargas in the D6 and the D8. Yeah, look at the D6. That D6 is where? There it is. Look at the moon with Mars in the D6. Right? We look for planets that combine. Right? We look for the house and we look for the planets that combine. Well, in the D6, Mars rules the sixth house, conjunct the moon. In the third, from the moon is the third from the fourth. The moon is the third is the 12th from the fourth, which is loss of the fourth. So again, indicating losing her breast by surgery in the D6. Right? So moon is with Mars in the D1, moon is with Mars in the D6, and if you look at the D8, which is chronic illness slash disease, chronic illness slash accidents, Mars is in the 8th again. Or Mars is in the 8th, which indicates clearly something going on with chronic illnesses. Right? So it shows all through and through. You can look at the Varga charts, it's there. Right? This is how you begin to clearly diagnose, clearly understand the propensity for illness in a person's chart, right? And again, these timing periods are impeccable with regards to revealing the outcome of that particular karma.
Indeed. So, yeah, man. I mean, this is. I mean, we talk about wealth. We talk about all different aspects, but I mean, looking at your health propensities through your chart, man, is probably the most important thing to do because you can't tap into none of that if your health ain't there.
Yeah, I mean, you're about to run a period.
Yeah.
And you got K2 in the first conjunct Saturn, right? Aspecting the sixth lord. Let's not talk about careers. Let's not talk about profession. Let's talk about you and being healthy. What?
Yeah. Indeed. Indeed. So with that being said, this episode was brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group, Caliprucia Astrology, and our good people over on Patreon. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Cosmic Convo, COSMIC Convo, CONVO on Instagram, and definitely go check us out and on pushitforward.com. Click on the Cosmic Convos link and order your Vedic astrology chart package, right? Like I said, you get all these different charts and different things that we're talking about and stuff like that. You can go order that and then have that right on hand, right? For an excellent price.
Very good price. Very good.
Indeed. So definitely go do that. Tell your people about it and stuff like that. And, Yeah, I mean, because it's a good companion. Because I mean, I know when you're listen to an episode like this, you're like, okay, where's my
Hmm.
ascended Lord?
You can
You
follow
know,
along. Exactly.
what's going on in my eighth house and stuff
Mhm.
like that. What's going on in my sixth house? Is my such and such house damaged? Different things like that. You want to. I mean, that just takes the podcast and everything to a different level.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Indeed, indeed. So, yeah, man. So if you know, brother Rod, you got anything else you want to impart on the
Nah,
people?
just get out there, grab people, share the information, spread the word. Spread the podcast around. We are on YouTube as well, so check us out there. You can view the podcast online, and actually, which is a beautiful thing. Thanks to the brother upgrading our system here, we seeing each other now versus just hearing each other. So you actually be able to witness the whole process and take a look, by visiting us on YouTube as well.
Absolutely, man. I mean, I'm not just saying it because I got something to do with it, but it's I mean, it enhances the experience.
It
Indeed.
does. It
We can
does.
look at the charts. I mean, right here we got the charts and all that stuff pulled up right now and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So it definitely changes the game in that regard. So I definitely encourage everybody to look at either YouTube or Facebook. Facebook, we have it on there like that as well. So you can check us out there. Indeed, we trying to, we're covering all platforms. You know,
Indeed.
indeed, indeed. So, as always, I want to thank you all for tuning in to this episode here. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, with another excellent episode for you. And everybody stay safe out there, stay healthy in light of this episode. And you know, we're out.
Peace.
Peace.